Hey guys, exploring Tesla's market trends, dips, resilience, and outlook. Uptick seen today, 11.47 support tested. NIO's strength and inverse head and shoulders pattern. Sentiment shifts to fear after Fed news. UK launch delay, European expansion continues. Chart, Deutsche Bank rating, shorting trends discussed. NIO's fate linked to market movement. Tesla, QQQ also analyzed. What's going on with Tesla SPY, the QQQ, and a couple of tickers out there? I'm gonna break down why the market ended up sinking the way it did, and how this ended up affecting NIO, and why NIO is starting to observe some strength as we're trying to base at a higher level than expected. But the question is, how will NIO move going forward? Will NIO continue to try to hold this level, or will the market end up affecting it in a different? I'm gonna break down all this information about these stocks. However, considering NIO, there has been an uptick of around 0.88% for the day as of the present moment. Directing our focus towards the chart, NIO has been holding up quite decently. That is relative to the markets. The market's continuing to sink down. And that's after all the news that came out from the Fed raising rates even more. And there could even be more news coming out later on today, if not by tomorrow. That could affect the markets as well. NIO actually hit support trying to base at about 11.47 around that area, trying to hold up, and we saw NIO get a small bounce before coming back down. It does have this unfilled gap down here, so there's a chance it could drop just a little bit before getting an attempt for a bounce. But it's been quite oversold, dropping very hard for the last couple of days. Now, NIO is making an effort to demonstrate increased strength. It's trying to base, and it's forming kind of like an inverse and shoulders-like structure. I can't promise you if it's going to hold or not, because we could drop a little bit more to form this right shoulder before this thing tries to bounce. But it is demonstrations some strength and more strength than before. Now let's first talk about the market. Why is the market sinking the way it has been? Obviously, we had the Fed come out and talk about during the FOMC minutes that they could be raising rates even more. And they also announced that because of the current cycle in employment data, they may have to continue to remain hawkish in doing so, and because of the risk of higher inflation. Again, that is playing a role in why the market is selling off. There could be another reason as well that we're going to find out later. But I just want to mention that the overall sentiment in the market, the emotion driving the market, used to be greed. Now it's just neutral. Now it's becoming fear, the market's becoming more fearful. The overall momentum less greedy than before. The price strength, it's also becoming less greedy, less strong. We're starting to discuss the McCollum Volume Summation Index, which is looking weaker as well. The put and call options positioning right now. That fear is driving the market as the put into call ratios are going up, and the market is positioning for more downside, becoming more and more fearful. The overall VX is also extremely fearful right now, as the VX is holding up quite nicely. Some data. However, upon reviewing the data from the CME group, we're starting to see a slight increase in the probability of us getting a 25 basis point rate hike. But it's nothing too crazy just yet. It's only at about 11.5%. So we'll be keeping an eye on this development to gauge whether it continues to increase. If it does, this could be a little bit more negative for the markets as far as NIO goes, saying that they won't launch in the UK until it develops its battery swap infrastructure. Nothing too big over here, because NIO is still open to expanding in Europe. But they do have to improve a lot of different things over there, such as their infrastructure. Their battery swapping technology. That's how you're going to incentivize more people to come, because they need that infrastructure. They need those stations. They need things like that. NIO also announced that in Stockholm they launched their 6th power swap station. This is once again some very good news for them. It's the first in Europe with the 3rd generation NIO power swap station, or that power right over there, which is great news for them. Very proud of NIO. They're an amazing company. Continuing to improve. Will continue to monitor these developments in the future. Deutsche Bank also gave NIO a buy rating, so that's going to be very important to note. We'll discuss the price periods continuing to sink as NIO was losing some relative strength, and examining this on a daily basis. it appears that NEO tends to experience positive growth approximately 53% of the time on Fridays. They tend to be better days than Thursdays typically, so this could be a good sign for tomorrow. And finally, we did observe a minor uptick, with approximately 14.5 million NEO shares being shorted. The shorts are starting to decrease just a tiny bit, but it's nothing too crazy in my opinion. Considering the trading volume, we got about 73 million in volume. So NEO is starting to get more and more buying pressure. But my only concern for NEO is going to be how the whole market performs. This becomes evident when analyzing SPY. It's looking weaker than before, even weaker than what I was expecting. Initially, we were expecting the market try to hold up when starting off. We didn't expect it to sell off like this hard, right? We were talking about potentially levels like 440 being tested, if not 438. We went all the way down to the 435s. That's pretty crazy, a little bit lower than what we were expecting for just one day. And now that this happened, we're going to be looking for either a bounce back to resistance very close to like 437 or so, and maybe a rejection off that, or if the market fails to hold these levels and it starts sinking again, if we get some kind of rebound in the morning, then we end up just continuing to fail, and we break below 435, you'll be actively observing 434.8. If that fails on SPY, it's going to come all the way down to the next support down here at 431. That's going to be coming next. If we continue to sink like this and the market's continuing to look weak as the market weakens, I actually have the 4-hour time frame right here. I can just keep some of these trend lines here, the levels. But I just want to be blunt with everyone. The market's looking weak now. It's not holding up nicely. Additionally, there's a possibility of further decline, but there's also potential for a rebound, then more downside if we fail to hold. We'll be closely monitoring the vicinity around 434.8. If that range is breached, there's a substantial possibility of a significant downward trend. The next critical point is around 431.5, and if that level is surpassed, could happen as soon as tomorrow. As the market's looking weak now for the QQQ, same thing is going on, looking relatively weak, hitting support at 357, forming this very interesting formation. We didn't really get much of a bounce for Friday so far. Our focus remains on observing the trajectory of this decline. Specifically, we will be closely monitoring the 357 range to ascertain any signs of a potential recovery. It's worth noting that we've witnessed buyer activity in this region before, indicating robust support. As a result, I'll be attentive to any indications of a possible rebound and evaluating the sustainability of this support level. If it ends up breaking because of Apple sinking, as Apple is looking weaker, this thing has the potential to fill this gap all the way down into like the mid 355, and 354 is a real possibility if we continue to sink lower. So that's going to be very important and worth noting. The market is still looking, well, relatively weak now. Considering Tesla's situation, Tesla is going to be another very interesting stock. The current trend, I just wanted to mention that we're currently very close to our 200. Our support right here. This is going to be our 215 to 217 support. That's where Tesla support is right now. If that breaks, we're going to be observing Tesla come all the way down to these next levels. So we have this previous zone right here, zone of support on Tesla. There's going to be some support right here around this 211 area. So we have three levels basically. So we're going to be discussing for, let me just bring out a horizontal line. This level right here is what Tesla is trying to hold. If that breaks right, we have 215, 200 and fails. We have this 212 area coming next below that. We have 208 to 209, like this entire zone right here. These are going to be the next support zones for Tesla. I would say between 207 and 209 is next, and we have 205 below that. So it is looking weaker, and we do have some more lower levels to be observed for. We also have this 205 area, so like way down here. And then if it gets below 205, we're probably gonna talking about this thing get very close to 200. The market is continuing to look weaker, not looking too good for Tesla. Going to be looking for a bounce off support between 215 to 217. So maybe it kind of like hits this level during the pre-market, tries to rebound. Could retest 220 before rejecting. If it does end rejecting, the potentially fall all the way down to these lower levels. 212 could be next. 207, 205 are all potential targets coming next. If it continues to sell off the way it has been, I think it's going to be very important to observe. And one thing I want to notice is that 207 flat just on an exact level, it's actually going to be more of like a range. So I could actually redraw this, it's going to be actually right here. It's like 207 to 209 actually, so it doesn't really matter. This is basically the same level. We'll closely monitor this entire area and observe how this situation unfolds. And following that, our attention will shift to the support level right here at 215. This is going to be our next key level to watch. The significance of the 215 level cannot be overstated. If it fails to hold and breaks down to 212, the next critical zone will be in the 207 to 209 range. Further down, we have the 205 level. These are the crucial support levels to keep an eye on for Tesla. The current outlook for Tesla appears to be relatively weak. Certainly, be on the lookout for a potential bounce in the price action. Our focus will be on whether there's an effort to regain the level above 220. However, in case this attempt proves unsuccessful, or if there's a retracement followed by a failed retest of that level, it could indicate a noteworthy development. The next most likely level is going to be 215. Below that we have 212, and then 209 to 207 is coming, 205 below that there's likely more downside. So with all that happening, right, with all these potential downside targets, how could this affect NIO? It's possible that we could observe NIO actually get dragged down just a little bit, but it's not going to be too extreme in my opinion, because NIO has this unfilled gap. I'll adjust and move to the 30-minute time frame to enhance visibility and understanding. So in the 30 minutes time frame, this is what NIO is looking like. NIO has this unfilled gap way down here. Absolutely, we will be observing this with meticulous attention. How does NIO respond to this? If I actually go back on the chart, I think I went to the 1 minute. I think I went to the wrong time frame. We're supposed to go to the 30 minutes. There we go. So on the 30 minutes time frame, okay, we have this gap down here all the way down to about 11.3. NIO has the potential to return to the 11.16 imbalance point. If that level is broken, so 11.3 as support, if that breaks, you will be keeping an eye on approximately 11.16. As for tomorrow, a little bit of downside and a bounce, but I think it's trying to base around here. Some signs of strength for NIO. It's crucial to observe these levels with careful attention. I think in the 11.3 area, then even like lower levels like that, like 11.2 are all possible. So if it bases or not, and after that happens, we'll be observing to identify the possibility of a potential rebound. But I don't think NIO is going to crash or sink insanely low unless we get a bad piece of news. I think the OBS favored dropping just a little bit to fill this gap, then trying to base and the not so low like 11, like 11.2, 11.3, trying to base around here, kind of like bounce, and then trade sideways, maybe get a very flat close. I think NIO is going to try to hold up a lot better next week, but for now, for Friday, it may be a little weak to end the week before anything better next week. So that's what I'm leaning towards. With that said, guys, I just want to thank you all for listening. Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more stock predictions and market insights. Remember to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. Happy investing and see you in the next video.